Good evening. It's very good to be here with you all. I'm going to make the link, really, between what we're doing at Grow and what the citizens are helping us do, and how policymakers can use what we're doing. So, how can citizen observatories, like Grow, contribute to the international and national sustainable development goals? That's what I'm going to explore a little bit. So, traditionally, citizen observatories gather data to fill data gaps. So in the UK, we have quite a few traditional data collection citizen science projects. For example, the Big Garden Birdwatch, which takes place every January, and the Great British Beach Clean, which takes place every summer. And what they do is they collect data that then is used to fill data gaps that otherwise we would find difficult and expensive to fill. But what we have now in front of us is we have new opportunities for gathering data on a much, much wider scale using new technologies. And that's what Grow is doing. We can gather high quality data at scales that are much, much wider than science would be able to do. And what that does, because it involves citizens in gathering that data, is that it increases trust in official statistics. So, what I'm going to talk about is how Grow can help build the trust. It can gather data, but it can also gather data to help fill gaps in indicators that are very, very difficult to measure otherwise. And I'm thinking of, for example, indicators on climate change and ending poverty. In Grow, we're particularly looking at 3 sustainable development goals, and that's why we have these lovely banners behind me. We're looking at SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 2, to end hunger. We're looking at SDG 13 on climate change, and we're looking specifically at SDG 15, life on land. So, what can Grow do? Well, Drew has already touched on this a little bit. We can provide data at scale. And I'm not just talking about geographic scale, I'm also talking about temporal scale. But on a geographic basis, we're providing data from across Europe, and we're providing a lot of data. So Drew mentioned that the International Soil Moisture Network has 250 stations across Europe. Grow already has nearly 2,000, and we're aiming for 10,000. That's the kind of scale we're talking about. However, we also collect data on a temporal scale that's very valuable. Our sensors, our flower power sensors, take measurements every 15 minutes, and they measure soil moisture, air temperature, and light levels. Those are the 3 elements that we're particularly interested in, and they do that over a period of months and over a period of years, and that's very valuable data. So, what can we contribute precisely to Sustainable Development Goals? I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail about the 3 that I've already mentioned. So first of all, SDG 2, aiming to end hunger and achieve food security. The target is to ensure more sustainable food production and more sustainable, resilient agricultural practices in order to work on food security. And what's Grow doing about that? Well, we're enabling more people to manage soil and land sustainably and grow locally appropriate food. And there are obvious benefits there in growing more food and growing food locally so that it's more resilient to change. If we talk about SDG 13, taking urgent action to combat climate change, we're looking to improve education, awareness raising, and institutional capacity to address climate change. And what's Grow doing there? We're enabling land managers, citizens, and policymakers to contribute to climate change models. And Drew explained a little bit about how we were doing that. But at the same time, we're also encouraging citizens and growers at a larger scale to use locally appropriate and sustainable growing practices. Finally, I'm going to talk about SDG 15, life on land. And the target, or the aim there in terms of the goal, is to protect protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. So what's Grow doing there? Well, again, we're enabling land managers and growers to manage their land and their soil sustainably, and we're also working with policymakers at local, regional, and national level to use that data to implement policy on land management in terms of ecosystems. There is, however, a need to make the link between the data and the knowledge that growers are sharing amongst themselves with scientists and with policymakers. We need to make the link to policymakers so that they know what the potential of all of this data and these educated and well-trained citizens actually are, and how they can access that data. So that's what we're doing. We're making the link between the two audiences. And what we're trying to do is to help build citizen science and data into future monitoring and then delivery of action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I will just explain who that group of people are. They are the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals Citizen Observatory Interest Group, and altogether they're writing a paper at the moment that should be submitted next month about how to integrate citizen data into SDG implementation and delivery. So look out for that one. However, once we've provided access, once we've demonstrated the potential of citizen data, there are a couple of things that we need to assure policymakers of, and one of those is data quality. We need to assure policymakers and scientists that the data that the citizens are collecting is of high quality. And we do this in several ways. Drew mentioned that we've been testing how robust the data is that we collect via Bluetooth onto mobile phones from the sensors. We also do that through training, and this is a picture of our community champions who are in each of the 9 grow places that Pavlos mentioned, and they are receiving a training course from one of our soil scientists, and you can read about what happened at this training course on one of our blogs, which is called From Hungary to Austria to Portugal via a really interesting hole. That's on our website. Most importantly, though, citizen observatories can build trust. We can build trust between government and policymakers, scientists and citizens. And the way we do that is because citizens' observatories build on agreed principles in terms of data privacy, in terms of providing meaningful engagement. The citizens can see their data being used by policymakers. In terms of transparency, citizens can see how their data is used. And in terms of ability to change, citizens can see governments actually using their data and implementing that data. I mean, the data are not being suppressed or ignored. And when citizens can see their data being used, and can see their data holding governments and policymakers to account, citizens are much, much more motivated and more likely to raise awareness of sustainable development goals in their own community, and they're more likely both to contribute to the process and to take and be part of collective action to transform society, to reduce poverty, increase equality, and halt environmental degradation. If you want to read more about the policy links that we make, then go and visit our blogs, where you can also read the one about the really interesting hole. And then there's our contact information. Thank you.